to, and I wrote it for something, but it needs letters.
Forestry report. Jared, you're up.
Good evening. Most of you probably don't know me, some of you do. I'm Jared McCall. I've been here for almost 12 years and here tonight to give you the 2022 County Forest Report, followed by the 2023 Annual Work Plan. I'll make it quick because nothing else seems to be quick. I'll touch on some important facts here on the 2022 report. Feel free to read it at your leisure. Jump down to total revenues from campgrounds and parks, $90,277, slightly down from last year, but up considerably from 2019, especially. That coincides with the improvements we did to Perch Lake Campground, making that an ATV accessible campground. That was a huge hit out on the landscape. Just below that, we have dispersed camping permits. Those went up at the same time as we eliminated remote sites, so that's just pretty typical year there on that. Slightly up, I guess. Maybe not. It's the same. Cross-country ski trails are still being maintained by the club. ATV trails as well. Snowmobile trails as well. The numbers are there on those. Feel free to enjoy them. On the back side, we have timber sales, the bread and butter of the county forest. 2022, we took in, maybe unofficial yet, but 2.9 million, significant increase over our previous record of 2.2 million. This equates to a levy reduction of $2.1 million. So we're happy to report that. I'm happy to. Just below that, we have 82 timber sales under contract, sold, ready to be cut. Below that, it shows that the estimated value of those is $8.6 million. So we have a lot of wood to cut in the next 4 years, since 4 years is the max contract length. And it seems like consistently over the last 5 years or so, we've sold a little over $2 million worth per year. So things are looking good. 10% of all timber sale revenue goes to townships, due to the fact that they have county forest in their town, so they don't get the property tax from private lands. 10% is $290,000, and that's split up on a weighted average to the townships that contain county forest. You can see the numbers there. We have almost $80,000 in the land acquisition account, $20,000 in a gravel crushing account, and carbon credits. We completed our first year of reporting on that. Hopefully the carbon credits come through as advertised. Time will tell. That is your 2022 County Forest Report. Any questions? Damage. It's a lot of damage. Yeah, I don't think anything that will equate to salvaging timber. We're gonna fly the drone potentially, look at some red pine stands, because a lot of those snapped off, a lot of red pine snapped off just for live drums. They're dead for all intents and purposes. Other than that, the aspen really bent over a lot, aspen and birch. I suspect they will rebound in some fashion or another. Potentially we'll have 45-year-old aspen in another 15 years. That's all crooked, but it will be fiber. That will be paper. So it will be sellable, I suspect. But more to come on that as spring comes. We'll see what happens and see how everything responds. good thing about Aspen is if a lot of them did break off or something like that, it can resprout pretty readily. I'm not concerned about that. The damage that I'm concerned about is the cost of opening up the roads, snowmobile trails, ATV trails, campgrounds. All that is a lot. We gave numbers to Tom Hall for his emergency management stuff, around $80,000. Approximately 50,000 of that is not going to be covered under any reimbursement that we may get. So potentially more to come on how we're going to pay for that stuff in the spring. So it'll be interesting. Challenges for everybody. Any more questions? No. So no action needed on that. That's an FYI. Some good historical numbers there for you to ponder. 2023 annual work plan. This will need to be motioned to approve so that we can apply for a county forest administrator grant that will pay for the county forest administrator 50% of the salary and benefits of that position. This is pretty nice. A few pictures. Mission statement. You can read that before you go to bed tonight if you're still ambitious. Boils down to we are here to manage on a sustainable basis for present and future generations, taking into account economic, social, and ecological needs. That's the bottom line. Making money just happens to be a really nice byproduct of that because we have a good market here in the Midwest for Europe. That's the economic side. If you flip to the next page, our county forest is approximately 88% forested, which is high, very high for county forests, which means we have a high percentage of land that we can make money off of. Aspen, 28%, northern hardwoods, 49%. That's almost half for those of you keeping track at home. And oak is 15%. It just so happens northern hardwoods is the most intensive type for management. There's no shortcuts when you're marking a stand. You have to look at every single tree and make a decision to cut it or leave it. Below that is non-forested type. That's mostly pretty much all swamps and grass areas. So the next page, forest structure, past, present, and future. You can look at those numbers. The most notable thing to me is the oak present is 11,500 acres, roughly. And that will drop to an estimated 7,800. The reason for that is many of our oak stands are growing on sites that are suitable, rich enough to grow northern hardwoods. So they'll be converted to northern hardwoods, which is sugar maple down here. Okay. So that's that. Timber sale administration, that is one of the, probably the second most important thing we do, in my opinion. Most important being timber sale establishment, but if we can't be confident that they're cut in an appropriate fashion, then we're wasting our time. So everybody kind of plays a role in timber sale administration, especially the assistant administrators. DNR standard, time standards, if you read that, you'll see we are allotted 2,129 hours from the DNR yearly. That's more than a full-time employee. So they're a huge help in every aspect of forest management. Timber sale planning and establishment. Long-term harvest goals, I'll skip right to the bottom. 3,200 acres is the goal to examine for potential of a sale establishment. That's a 15-year average. Forest recon you may notice that 0 acres of our county forest has recon that is over 20 years old. So that's a good thing. We know what's out there in the last 20 years. 89,000 acres has been looked at within 20 years. A lot of work to do that. Forest protection. Constantly monitoring for insect disease, invasive species, and try to take the appropriate action when necessary, although sometimes it costs a lot of money. But we work with DNR Forest Health Specialist, Paul Segan, on that. If you ever get a chance to listen to someone speak who loves bugs and funguses and insects, he's your man, and he's a good man, and he knows his stuff. County forest roads, we have 23.12 miles that we receive funding on to maintain. That is a challenge to maintain on the money we get, but we're doing okay there, apart from the storm damage. Land acquisition, continue to look for land to acquire as desired by the committee and the board. Survey as needed. Parks and Rec. You can read through that. There's lots going on. That is the kind of the main social leg of the three-legged stool of sustainable forest management. Economic, social. So wildlife, we have wildlife money that we get from the state to do wildlife projects. That is mostly mowing of grass openings and hunter walking trails. And finally, this miscellaneous firewood permits, issues, random stuff there. We'll continue to work on the carbon credit stuff, although, I shouldn't say although, that's going well. Currently in a phase of, they're going to look at plots to look at growth and removals of carbon before they can sell what we have. Now I should say finally, grants and funding. Just kind of a list of some of the grants that we get on an annual basis, and we'll continue with this year. County Forest Admin Grant pays 50% of the administrative salary and benefits. Wildlife Habitat Grant, County Forest Road Aid. Interest-free loan, was decided not to acquire this year. Sustainable forestry grants are an option if we think of something needed, we could potentially get a grant there. And we use county funds, but it eventually equates to a negative levy amount due to the timber sale revenue. If there's any questions on what we'll be doing in the next 12 months, read that. Any questions?
Damage up in the forest might have an effect on this carbon.
Will the damage affect the carbon? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I can hope not. If it does, it'll be minor, I think. For the most part, it's smaller trees that are bent over, some large stuff.
But maybe that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a huge hit.
What's the latest about that damage that was caused for ATVs crossing the stream and the $30,000 damage from the DNR was on our case, and has that been resolved? Where does that stand? We haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah, so it's not resolved. There was an ad hoc committee put together, and they worked on that for a handful of months and came up with a plan, a lot of education there between them and the DNR and whatnot. So as it stands now, we have to continue attempting to draft a ordinance that will protect water resources while appeasing the DNR basically. That's gonna be challenging.
So that's still out there.
It's still out there. We're currently working on the restoration of that stream crossing in that road. It's on schedule. Highway department about the snow off it to freeze it down. We have to get material out there to rebuild the stream banks this winter, and we'll actually rebuild the stream this summer to tidy that up. And that is one crossing of a few hundred on the landscape.
That's what the DNR said you had to get done in a certain time period or you would lose that.
Yes, what's in jeopardy, yeah, so, not sure how deep to get into this. By allowing stream and wetland damage, we are in violation of our own 15-year plan passed by the board, and we're in violation of standards set by the DNR water regulations, chapter 30 violations, as well as not being in compliance with forest certification. You may be aware that we are required to maintain forest certification in order to uphold our 40-year contract in the carbon registry. So we have to maintain the certification by coming to a resolution on how to handle environmental damage.
Thank you. Mr. Senator?
More to come on that for sure.
Back to Bob's question, it was explained to us, part of the contract we signed, has a provision in it for damage, you know, I mean, we get huge fly swatter going up and swatting hills once in a while, taking a bunch of stuff off. But what they told us is built into the contract, so we don't get the jet, you know, it's averaged out in there, so we get a constant. You know. That's what we were told, and that's what I know other counties are basing this on too, so.
That is true, and like I said, I don't think that storm was significant enough to do anything.
Compared to other ones we've had, I'd say.
Yeah.
Mr. Raymond.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Oh, Jared, how close are we to that resolution? You know, I know the ad hoc committee's been meeting, and we're gonna have motorized, non-motorized, all that in place. But I don't know, you know, when they talk about decertification, all that other stuff, I don't know the right word. So I think, you know, in the future, where in the future we should do that now. You know, I don't know where the ad hoc committee is.
Yeah. Yeah, the solution is in the works. I'm not sure what it's gonna look like, but we have to develop criteria that we can use to examine the roads in order to allow them to stay open. And that's gonna be challenging just to develop that, and then to actually implement it, we have to have a plan for implementation. It'll be worked on soon, hopefully by me. No. It's a huge umbrella, it's gonna be challenging, you know? We're not gonna keep everybody happy, that's all there is to it. Don't shoot the messenger. It's gonna be a bitch.
But you're gonna need,
I'm gonna need the help of everybody in this one, doing those that don't want to some degree. I mean, it's not gonna look good to some, and to others it will. Everybody has their opinion that was expressed a couple months ago here.
yes.
Both sides of it were tackled very well, I thought, by the public. Everybody's point is valid and everybody has their opinion. Comes down to we have to do something.
That's after the ad hoc committee helped a lot, you know.
Yep.
With input and stuff like that, even
Yep.
after the meeting.
Yep.
I'm sure they're waiting on their sleep.
Yeah, they're waiting. So the latest was a draft of the ordinance went through the DNR and they came back with a lot of comments that we need to address by changing and adding things to the ordinance.
Okay, so they already.
Yep. Yep, they slapped their big fat red F on it and said trash. I've had some preliminary talks with county forest specialist at the DNR on that. And I look forward to the challenge.
Mr. Stout.
Didn't hear you. I don't know. I guess so. Hold an ad hoc meeting and I'll come give the report that we need to try. Yeah. So the ad hoc committee did a lot of work and compromises were made. It's a great start and we just need to plow forward, continue. Yep, sure.
Well, okay, so I can give you a quick update. Okay, so, Nick and Johnny from, LandCon did a lot of the legwork, looking at what other counties did for their access ordinances. Nick put together maps, and it was a lot of hard work getting the ad hoc committee to come to a consensus of what trails actually needed to be shut down. So we weren't in violation with water rights. I think that's right, Nick. Yep. Okay. So that came to a conclusion, I think, in December, Terry? November. Okay. So then we sent our ordinance off to forestry. They had a couple little tweaks that they wanted to add, and then we sent that off to the DNR. And then the DNR came back with their suggestions. So that's where we sit now. If you want, I can send the ordinance and maps to the board so you can get up to speed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, we're still, we're still in limbo. So there's really nothing to report because we might have to completely start from scratch with our ordinance. Yeah.
We have a deadline.
Deadline is, it's great, I don't know. I don't know the deadline. Starting from scratch doesn't mean throwing out what was done, but we need to rewrite things.
Any other questions? Now we need a we got a motion second to approve the work plan. Now, yes, that's by majority vote. Next, we have, appointing Rusk County Forest Administrator. Motion and a second to approve. Okay. Mr. Undershoots?
Yeah, I was wondering, with everything going on with the ATV trail plan and all that, is it possible to appoint for a temporary position, give like a 3-month trial to see if maybe the ATV plan is all done in that time, kind of like a trial? Or do we have to appoint on permanent? That might be a rich question. Do we have to appoint permanent, or do we appoint for a trial?
On top, like a trial
Yeah.
motion?
that would be, because we got some big stuff on the agenda, and, I know Jared's doing an excellent job with it, but I would definitely want to see, you know, I know, Jeremy talked a lot of stuff before he was administrative coordinator, and then once, thought he was settled in that position, things changed. So I guess my thing would be is I wanna see something happen with that ATV resolution, kind of the test phase. Give them a certain amount of time, and see if something can be done with that, finalized.
I mean, I think your ability is to rule out the cause for not doing that, if that's the case, I mean, that's part of their job. If you lose a forest certification, you have problems then. And so, I mean, I think that's part of the job. Temporarily. You could do that anytime, any department.
Snyder?
Remember, we're down one position at course ground. With all the stuff going on right now, which is extra, so. Maybe next month we might come back and say, hey, can we get a temp, well, no, do this, I don't know, we'll see what happens by then.
Yeah, I guess it's just a big issue, we don't wanna lose the certifications, but I guess, just a strong recommendation, I would work hard on that.
Any other discussion? If not, vote on County Forest Administrator. Mr. Hanson, we're waiting on you. 18 yes, passed by majority vote. Appointing Rusk County Health and Human Service Director. We're just
And if there's no objection, I think he's gonna go out in order to get, her appointed. Take this off. You're moving resolution 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
Need a motion? Okay, we got a second. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, so Ashley Nelson was appointed by the HHS board earlier this evening after the ad hoc interviewing committee put her forth as the desired candidate to replace Jeremy Jacobs as Health and Human Services Director. Jeremy couldn't be with us tonight, but he did send me something to read. So, he says, "Good evening. With great pleasure, I recommend Ashley Nelson as the next Health and Human Services Director. Ashley has successfully navigated the Children and Family Services as a frontline worker to becoming the supervisor managing the unit with compassion, effectiveness, and great leadership. While Ashley will not brag about herself, I will. Ashley demonstrates the skills needed to manage a wide range of services while continuing to promote a strong working environment, promoting a work-life balance. Ashley will strive to grow into the role while learning the new tasks associated with being responsible for the 7 departments. Ashley has a strong management team behind her that is passionate about the care and well-being of the consumers of Rusk County. I'm confident that Ashley will take Rusk County Health and Human Services to the next level, providing innovative and forward-thinking services to the residents of Rusk County. Thank you."
Any questions? If not, a motion, or we got the motion second, all in favor, vote no. That's by majority vote. Congratulations.
Thank you all for the opportunity. Look forward to working with you.
Okay, next, discussion, possible motion, Farmers Market Pavilion letter of support. Ashley will present.
Okay, so, I was contacted by the city to provide a letter of support for building a farmer's market pavilion right across the way here.
requested relief was based upon that agreement. It's my understanding that the city of Ladysmith is attempting to apply for a grant. Consistent with that grant, they're requesting that the county author the letter that is on page 3 of your packet. We need a motion to either, we have a motion to direct the county to draft author.
You need a second.
I don't know, this was directed to Ashley by.
Right, I didn't write this letter, Al, the city administrator did.
Al's here.
Do you want to speak on that?
Al?
Al?
Yeah, if council approves. Yeah, basically the gist of it is, the city's already authorized applying for, some grant funding to, fund the farm work pavilion. It seems to always come up every couple of years. There's an opportunity to seek out, $50,000 in matching funds, through a pilot program that WEDC is putting on. The draft letter of support I sent out to Ashley, I think just is, basically, yeah, we support the concept and acknowledging that we have a pre-existing signed agreement that the county, maintains that lot over there, plowing and all of that. There's no ask for a financial commitment of any kind. I've gotten similar letters of support back from the Ladysmith Fab Lab, who's gonna be putting in, we're doing some bike racks in conjunction with TNT Automotive, out in the industrial park. The Chamber of Commerce is signed on, so basically the letters of support to strengthen the application. So that's what the ask is for. And, yeah, you're obviously welcome to tweak the draft that I provided to you if needed. Any questions?
You said there's no county money to be involved?
Correct, no ask of the county. If you decide you do wanna kick in later down the road, you,
That's not according to what that states. I think it states that we are supposed to finance something and get paid back.
no, that's, the agreement that I sent along just for backup. That was done way back in 2008, and, I was just a sophomore in college back then, but, I think, yeah, the original plan was the county would finance putting the shelter up, and then the city would reimburse the county through TIP funds, but that's not the approach the city's taking now, so that, part of that agreement is essentially irrelevant unless the city and county, as it states in there, would agree to some sort of financial package, which that's not what the city's seeking. I do assume you do have a copy of the draft letter though, in your packet.
It's my thinking, and that we could almost start from scratch. With a new agreement, if the board wants to do that, instead of trying to revise this one.
Oh, there isn't any planned revision to this one. And that stipulation in there that the county fronts the money and the city pays them back is irrelevant because that's not it's not the plan. And I'm happy to be put on record saying that. Just looking for a letter of support on the concept, and the city would be funding it through their TIP district. The Ladysmith Development Corporation has pledged some money, and the Farmers Market Board has pledged some money as well. So no county money, unless you decide later you want to kick in.
Mr. Tater?
Yeah, Alan, obviously you have a plan or
some design in mind?
Yes.
What I was wondering, the county is still gonna be responsible for snow removal out there. So, is that gonna hamper snow removal and how will it affect future parking?
Parking won't be affected. I would assume, there might be a little more work with snow removal. You have the design right now calls for a shingle roof, so it's not like you're gonna have a metal roof like that little rail shelter there, that's gonna slough a bunch of snow off at one time. But the structure will actually just take up that painted space that's between the parking stalls right now. It's approximately 12 feet wide, 130 feet long, I believe, without having the plans in front of me.
Mr. Kudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you said that actually the county is not gonna be responsible for any funding or whatever, but yet in this agreement, I realize this is not initially getting it set up, but it states right here, that the county will be responsible for general and routine maintenance on the property.
Yep, and you
And the
have
cost
to-
associated, which includes not only lawn mowing, snow removal, and landscape maintenance. Now that would be, we would be providing laborers, et cetera, machinery, I suspect, to perform these functions. So that is a cost to the county, is it not?
You've been providing those services since 2008, plowing the parking lot, mowing the green space, and helping take care of the landscaping. So it's already a cost that you're incurring there. I guess what I was stating is there'd be no cost to you for pavilion construction. That clarifies.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Good? Both?
Really signing something with somebody that's about 3-4 years on, and somebody's gone, and this is a lot of work. I think that was the way to read it, for what we wanted to say.
Again, there is no request to change the agreement that was already done back in 2008. This is just a letter saying you support the concept of getting a structure funded that will allow folks that are primarily county residents to come into the city and sell their goods, allow budding entrepreneurs to try out ideas in a setting, and all of that. So.
Ms. Anderson?
The upkeep or maintenance of the pavilion, that would fall on the county or the city or the farmer's market?
City would maintain the actual pavilion, so if, it needs to be reshingled 30 years down the road, or, timber cracks or something, that's all city.
Mr. Michelle? Okay. Mr. Willingham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to facilitate this, it seems to me the board can approve the letter and direct the staff, administrative coordinator to negotiate a new contract or a new agreement with the city that takes out those areas of regarding funding, so that there's no ongoing concern about that, and those things can be done simultaneously. We don't have to wait to sign the letter until after the new agreement is done.
Is that an amendment that you would make to the?
Sure.
Mr.
I'm sure
Meyer?
somebody wrote that all down.
So if I was reading, I didn't catch all the comments, but somebody's gonna make an amendment to this to go with just approve the letter, not
It's
try to
the-
zero out the contract.
It's an amendment to there's a motion on the floor to approve the letter. And so I'm amending that motion to instruct the administrative coordinator to engage with the city to renegotiate this other agreement, eliminating the funding language, and that can be done at the same time. That we don't have to wait to approve the letter. So that's the idea.
Gotcha. So my comment here is,
Hold on, just one word. That's an amendment.
Yes.
Then you need to hit your amendment button.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then, are you typing this on your, right? And then the amendment will be to direct the administrative coordinator to negotiate a revised agreement regarding the pavilion use of vehicles. So you got a motion for to amend by Mr. Willingham, do you have a second? So, any questions on the amendment?
No questions? Vote for the.
Amendment.
We have to vote on the amendment first, so. Eighteen yes, passed by majority vote.
I'm doing a motion as amended. So now, I need a motion. Yea or nay?
Vote now. Seventeen yes. Passed by majority vote.
Thank you.
I asked it, where else is field club contacted me regarding the work that they have done on snowmobile trails that they need. And I think you probably all are aware of the snowstorm we had. The trails were impassable. Snowmobile club hired a contractor to go in there. They got sizable bill. They broke down into two parts, one for county land and the other was for private land. The county land was $35,310. The private land was $6,720. So I guess they probably didn't have to go in there. They probably could have come to the county and said, hey, it's your land, your trails, take care of them. But they did go in, they opened up the trails, I think they have the money to pay for it. So, here we are. Now, they could have probably, I don't think they're gonna be able to get 3 bids, or if they didn't, that would be impossible. Unless you took 3 contracts out turning on. There's no way you could walk through those trails. So, here we are, and I don't know just what the other snowmobile clubs have done. If they've done and opened up trails, they should be reimbursed.
What are you asking for then?
What's that?
What are you asking for?
Well, their bill is $35,310. That's on the county line.
So, I guess my opinion is based upon what was posted here. I don't know that this gives the public or the other snowmobile clubs any idea of what we were requesting. So I guess my opinion would be that you would put this either on the agenda for the next month's meeting, or refer this back to the Forestry Committee and have that there, and have them properly posted. So if other snowmobile clubs believe that they should be reimbursed for this as well.
I mean, they've already, the enforcement department's had this already.
Okay, well, I'm saying based upon what was posted here, I don't know that you can take any, that you should take any official action as to reimbursing them, because I don't think that this notice was proper in the circumstances. notice that you were contemplating giving them money tonight.
Jared, do you have anything to say on it?
If I may. The state is holding a special meeting on February 2nd. The Snowmobile Council, I should say, and they will discuss the possibility of funding this storm damage through rehab grants out of the typical snowmobile fund. I'm assuming they're gonna do something. If not, it's gonna be pretty terrible for every snowmobile club in northern Wisconsin, but we'll know more after February 2nd. There is an email out from Jillian, I forget her last name, with the DNR, telling all the clubs to get all their stuff entered into the online system for that, so that they have an idea of how much money they're looking at having to spit out. Your dollar amount is not unique. Other clubs are right in that neighborhood.
So the meeting on Thursday, I think, from, Mike Peterson.
Yeah.
Presenting on financing.
Crumbs.
So, I don't know what they're.
Thursday, February 2nd.
It's really bad.
This is Thursday.
This week? I don't know.
North Jack meeting.
Oh, okay. All I know is something is in the works with the DNR Snowmobile Council to potentially fund, on some. Yeah, for sure.
Mr. Undershoots.
Yeah, I just wanna say, this did come through forestry and no vote was, no decision was made on this not to take action. Cause it kind of opened up a can we didn't really want to get into. So, yeah, it did go through forestry, but it was turned down as voted. It was not a good decision for this.
Were they asking for, county funds to pay for it, or what?
Yeah, they're asking for county funds, to pay for repairs or whatever they had contractors do. And, you start opening up that we're gonna approve a club over here and a club over here, and pretty soon we're opening up a can of worms that we don't know a dollar amount. And once you've done that for one club, then you're setting precedents to do it for everybody. And I just don't think it would be right all of a sudden we're shutting somebody off. I think we should really look to see what the state does, first, before we go make a decision to approve this. It could lead to a lot of money that we don't have, necessarily.
Lois?
I was just wondering, don't they make some money on all this lumber that they cut down? To take that off, what's the original cost? They're cutting all these trees, what are they doing with them? Selling it?
Our timber sale revenue goes back to county budget. Well, the trail, it's not merchantable work. There's no money to be made on it.
Gary?
Yeah, the snowmobile program is funded through the state, through the SNARS program. Jerry said that they're gonna be uploading it, all the clubs are informed what to do. When we click on our SNARS program, it says with the storm damage, put your invoices in by February. The council that does not fund it, it will go on to our general meeting. It's funded through the state, so we are working on collating it through our snowmobile program for the state, which is considered a SNARS, tracking us on how we're doing and the maintenance of our trails that we do every year anyways. It's being worked on.
Mr. Pudo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jerry, do you know, is that 40%?
No, it all,
Is it like 70?
that depends on that meeting they're gonna have, on how much damage we have. It all depends on how many hours you get in grooming, goes into our supplemental for our maintenance. All our maintenance is so high this year, we're looking at storm damage program, that's why they have a meeting. next week sometime. Video conference on it. All our groomer clubs should have known to put their stuff into their maintenance program, groomer tracking system that we have to do with the state to get our funding in. That Mike's been working on it. If anybody has any questions on it, ask Mike and he will explain to you how the program works. So we commence that.
I guess, you know, it's nice that the trails are cleared. However, not everybody in the county has snow days, not everybody utilizes trails. Is it fair for us to ask the, you know, the county to pay for that?
I don't think there may be an ask.
As a generalized question for everybody to consider.
The trails are funded through the state DNR program. Program that's run through the forestry department. Any of them questions, I would refer back to Mike implements the program through the forestry administrator and everybody. I don't foresee an ask for DNR will figure out how to fund it. If not, it'll just go under maintenance.
So the snowmobile program is 100% funded through snowmobile registration and trail passes. That's where all that money comes from, for all the maintenance on every snowmobile trail in the state. And that is the money that they'll be looking at cracking into to pay for this. And what it will end up doing is normally every spring there's a deadline to apply April 15th for new bridges, other random trail rehab. New bridges is a big one, bridge rehab, other stuff like that, whatever projects you might come up with on a snowmobile trail. And the council meets in the summer or August roughly, and they go through all the projects and divvy up all the money that they have. First there's a set, dollars per mile for maintenance, and that's divvied out to the counties. And then the excess goes to the projects. So they're gonna be cutting into the project money to pay for the cleanup, basically.
Okay, let's continue on. We got, ways to go yet. Next is gonna be the highway commissioner job description. Need a motion and a second to approve?
So the highway committee met, to relook at the highway commissioner job description because we have a vacancy now in that position. Tim is our interim. Mr. Rush is no longer with the county. So the, description you have in your packet, that's our original one. And then everything that's added in red is what the highway committee is suggesting. So we added the statute requirements, under the general summary. Under the educational and experience requirements, the big changes were that we are asking for a preferred bachelor's degree, a preferred CBL, and a federal bridge inspection certificate required within 12 months. I know it says 6, but Jonathan requested 12 months.
Any questions? Ready to vote on it?
I'll make the amendment to change that 6 to 12.
All in favor of the amendment? So that's the amendment.
On the bottom of page 1, where it says 6 months, you're changing that from 6 months to 12 months.
Yeah. Mr. Scout, vote. Come on, wake up. yes, passed by majority vote. Now we can vote on, passed by majority vote, 16 yes. Now, medical exam. Amend ordinance establishing cutoff time for filing and recording documents in the register of deeds office. Need a motion and a second to approve. Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Okay, so this is a simple ordinance change because we changed the courthouse hours. This is the resolution that Mary, the Register of Deeds, is wanting to change. You can see in the fifth paragraph down, it says documents received after 3:30 processed on the next official business day. Well, because the courthouse closes at 12:30 on Fridays now, it needs to bump back to 11:30, so that's the only thing that's changing.
Any other questions? If not, we vote now.
Oh, my battery's dying. Oh.
18 yes, passed by majority vote. Medical examiner rate schedule, need a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
So just a little background on this, Annette and I worked on this together. Previously, the medical examiner was full-time, 38.75 hours per week, paid that number of hours regardless of the workload. So what this resolution is doing is making this position paid by a per diem for the medical examiner, so it's a lower amount, and then, the medical examiner will then be paid per diem, a stipend, they'll be paid a monthly stipend, and then per diems for cases taken, so the pay will line up more with the workload actually being performed, and that they're not just being paid to sit around and getting that 38.75 hours per week. It's going to, cut about $39,000 out of that medical examiner budget annually, and I think it switches the medical examiner deputies from being paid a monthly stipend regardless of how many calls they take or however long they are on call, to being paid on call for the number of hours that they're actually on call, similar to our EMT staffs.
Any questions? If not, we vote now. That's my majority vote. Number 13 is
possibility.
It's still a key word.
Yeah, nothing is guaranteed, but if we don't have this disaster declaration, it's for sure a no.
Any questions? Gary?
I'm just gonna make a statement, question. As a snowplow operator for 3 townships north of Glen, Florida, I'm gonna take a rough guess at 65% of the roads that I plow up there to the town of True, the town of Richland, and the town of Cedar Rapids, we did not plow. They were completely unpassed. So, the $1 million estimate, I think it's probably on the other side. I think this is going to take place. This towns may not have the financial backing of this.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we vote no on. Yes, by majority vote. Next, we got designating American Rescue Plan Act funds to be used for internal Rusk County projects. Need a motion and a second to approve. We have a motion and a second.
Okay, so this is the list of ARPA requests that have already gone to committees, and the finance committee just wanted to bring it to the full board to formally, kind of approve and see all the projects that have been approved out of those ARPA funds so far. Not all of the ARPA funds have been allocated yet, as you'll see, towards the bottom there, that this is designating about 1.6 million of those ARPA funds. And a couple of those have already gone to full county board. I just wanted to include them on this list, so we had a comprehensive list being brought forward today.
Mr. Kudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple questions about, some of these allotments. First of all, I noticed here, there's a $81,586,000 courtroom sound system. And then, that's from July, and then down at the bottom here, in January, there's it looks like additional courtroom 2 upgrades for sound for $63,421. Really?
Yes, so the first one is for courtroom 1, the big courtroom, and that was, done actually in 2021. And then the second courtroom, they've been having to utilize it a lot more with, the current judge not being able to see all of the cases in the county. And the state did put some money into putting a digital audio recording device in there so that, and that's actually mandatory, I think, in all the courtrooms now, but then the court reporter can, dictate from that rather than having to physically be in the courtroom. But the state did not pay for the sound system in there with the microphone, so it was really hard for them to hear.
And I think, Andrew, that's courtroom number 2, not 2 upgrades. So the first one is for courtroom number 1.
Okay, so these are 2 separate rooms then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
alright, okay. Then, okay, IP camera project, 120,000. What was that?
So part of that is to upgrade the cameras that we currently have. There's a 120-day retention, requirement on any cameras that we have, and.
Is this like cameras monitoring the doors, I think?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, and so that's to get the current cameras that we do have in compliance, as well as add cameras up to that dollar amount.
And then the IT disaster recovery project, 95,000.
So that is cloud backup for.
And then also, we have like an $11,664 dollars for fairground sound system. Which I know, I know it's there and it's in place. I just wanna bring to people's attention because it did come up at a fair board meeting. We utilize, we hired somebody to, is it for the rodeo?
For the rodeo, yes.
And we're paying him X amount of dollars for a sound system, and, I think, I think we need to, like, think about actually utilizing this $11,664 sound system. I'm just throwing this out there so people know what's happening. That's all.
Go ahead,
Can I
John.
speak? So the sound system that we use during the fairs is, paid for by donation.
Well, why is it here then under ARPA?
That's for truck and tractor pull. And any other things they have going on in the grandstands on that side, but we pay for anything with the rodeo is done by, donation.
Okay.
I hope that helps. It's just not big enough for what we need during the rodeo. That's part of the problem. I mean, it'll cost us thousands of dollars. I mean, that's nothing compared to what we need for the rodeo.
Okay. All right.
Tom,
That's all I had. Thank you.
Tom, the other part of that is, the sound system that the rodeo brings is hooked right into their computer, so they can run all the snippets of the music and everything through it. It's all preset in their computers, which isn't in this sound system.
Which, I know that came up in,
Yeah.
I just didn't understand why
tried.
you couldn't use sound.
We did try.
Huh?
We did try.
It didn't work. Okay.
Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, I've got some trouble with this. There's been no guidance from this county board as to how that money should be allocated, none. We talked about the voting machines, that came before the board, and there was a couple other items that came before the board here, the studies, and that's fine. The rest of this is just, little property, approved some folks came to finance, we didn't really vote on anything there, we kind of shrugged our shoulders on some of them, so they got thrown away. The fairgrounds, grandstand, that was on the back of a piece of paper, $265,000. Well, now, what's that gonna be? Is that gonna be a paint job and tuck pointing, or, we don't know what the heck we're getting, a lot of this stuff. I'm gonna vote no, so.
Any other questions?
One thing, there's still some stuff that's hasn't been defined on this, funding, because, there's money appropriated for, or listed here, for state plans for fairgrounds restrooms, but there's no actual cost estimate for the restrooms themselves. And that money is supposed to be, or at least it was anticipated, spending some of this, rescue plan act money for new restrooms. There's no estimate for the cost of them or anything.
We won't know that until we get the blueprints, I suppose.
I understand, but you can't, so you get the blueprints and then what? You've gotta have some kind of idea of what you want for plans, and a rough estimate of what it's gonna cost. It's $8,000 is basically for drafting up the engineering of it, whatever you choose. But it has nothing to do with how much the restrooms are gonna cost. That's over and above the plan.
I think in order to get an accurate estimate of what they're going to cost, we need those plans.
Well, you can have plans, but you don't have to have engineered drawings for the plans. You can make plans and say, I want.
Well, because of the number of the fixtures, it was my understanding that that's why we needed the state approved plans, because of the number of the plumbing fixtures.
I'm not happy with the way this stuff, this comes down here.
Any other comments? Mr. Undershoot?
I just wanted to make the comment that, I agree there's a lot of, spending that, should be said no to, but this did go through finance, and, some of the people voted yes on some of these things to even adding to this resolution at the last finance meeting, which I voted no on, but to bring it to full board now and say that you're saying no on it, I mean, I agree, there's a lot of stuff that I would vote no on, but, I guess I would be consistent in the finance committee meeting and vote no if they're gonna vote no on something, not come and vote no on it now, I guess would be my comment.
Well, I think it should be sent back for further consideration for the county board. I'll make a motion to that, postpone this, send it back.
Yeah, can I just, a lot of, because there has been no formal process, it's been approved by property committee, it's been approved by finance committee. Some of this money's already spent because there hasn't been any true guidance on what the full approval needs to be in order for them to spend these ARPA funds, so, for example, that sound system's already purchased. The courtroom sound system's already purchased. There's already expenses for the land conservation. I know that IT's working on ordering those servers. I think Connie's ordered the tally results.
But I had county board approval.
No, not for the tally results.
No, that I have not.
The IT cybersecurity stuff, I mean, that's not in the budget for 2023, so we're not gonna have cloud backup if this doesn't get approved. And going forward, I mean, if that's the policy, we can certainly have everything go through full county board before the spending happens, but some of this has already happened.
Well, I think he'd like to motion to go back to the meeting.
Mr. Terry, go.
Yeah, I don't remember just which, finance meeting it was, but several months back, forestry department came with several requests. I know one was for a campground expansion, it was like $750,000. I think the request would have probably used up the rest of the money that we had. So, we didn't do anything with it. So that's in limbo right now, so, what do we do with it? I think more, one was maybe for, paving the driveway on the shooting range and stuff like that.
Mr. Meyer, I'm sorry, Tony.
I got you here, Tony, and just.
Okay, so if I remember correctly from finance guys, we put on this what had been passed by a committee. I mean, everything on here has been passed by a committee in a sense. Even what's on this resolution now was passed by finances that day. So, and it's behind it what committee it was passed from. But like Jamie said, and I'm fine with what Randy said, we've had this discussion numerous times with finance, where do we go, what do we do? So we felt we needed to put some on here, but I think this committee needs some guidance from the board, like Randy said. What do we do next here? Do we wanna pick through this and make sure that we get everything approved that's already went through a committee and is started in motion? Do we wanna bring everything to committee for every project we do with ARPA funds? I guess that's something either that needs, I don't know if we can do that tonight, or if we need to, like you said, go back to committee, bring it back.
Well, some of the stuff that's already been approved has been spent. I mean, you're talking about, the voting machines. Some of this money's already been spent.
That was approved by the board.
So that should, as far as I'm concerned, shouldn't even be on this list anymore.
Right, but it's approved by the board, but we have other things on here that are approved, kind of in motion, but haven't been approved by the board.
No, but stuff that's been approved is spent. What's that on here for?
Well, I think Jamie said she wanted one comprehensive listing of all the items, whether they've been spent or not. Have it all in one place, because then you would go back to County Board 824, 2021 for the voting machines. She's trying to get a comprehensive listing of what has been, and I thought this was also, the committee was doing stuff with prioritizing the listing of spending for the ARPA funds. And so this is what they came up with I mean, it's not all of it, but this is what was prioritized to be spent too.
Some of it has been spent by certain committees. So what do you do with that?
Stuff that's been approved is spent. Basically spent, we're committed to. It's fine to have it listed, but it don't need to be listed on the projects there to be approved. It should be separated, it could be on the same, you know, it could be listed separately on the same resolution, showing that this is what's spent, this is what's proposed to be spent.
Well, what's spent is just, it's fluid. I mean, there's invoices coming in every day, and everything that's on here has been approved by committee. And I just added those ones that were already approved by full county board, just so it was comprehensive. But as far as aside from the last three that the finance committee approved last week, the departments and clubs or whoever, the organizations are all, think that they've got the green light to go ahead and purchase.
Who's first? Randy or,
No, Randy.
Jim?
No.
Are you done, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay. Mike, Mr. Reagan?
Mr. Chairman, Jamie, if I'm right with this whole scenario, any county that received under $10 million, they didn't have a criteria from the federal government or the state government, but we didn't have a criteria what to do at the county level either. And you can see there's 3 or 4 committees here that approved things. Now, when I first started on the county board, if you spent so much outside of the highway shop, they could buy a road grader, and you know what, that was approved. But if you spent over so much in a contract, it came before the full board. But where we dropped the ball, I think, on this whole thing, and there's a lot of good things on here, is we didn't have a criteria, you know what, a procedure to do this. Now, you still have $1 million left. There's some things out in the county were set up for tourism and all this other stuff, which is important too. But we've self-served ourselves first. But the thing is that I can't understand is there's 3 or 4 committees here that have approved different funds. But at a board level, we have no idea what the criteria was to do it. You know what I mean? It would help you too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, and most of this stuff is, you know, any purchase over $1,000 needs to go to property. And so, you know, if it's an equipment purchase over $1,000, it did go to the property committee. Aside from, I guess the property committee didn't formally approve those last 3, the fairgrounds and the courtroom 2 upgrades. But they had been presented to by the fair board, the multiple times they've been, how many property meetings have we come?
Mr. Willingham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as a practical matter, I think when the property committee approves, purchases, like you say, over $1,000, they're usually items that were already in the budget for that department, and they needed to, and sometimes they're coming out of contingency fund. But as a practical matter, I don't know, I didn't count them, but there's 20 or 25 items on here. So how does a board member vote in favor of 18 and against 2 of them? And I'm gonna be against these 2 and you're gonna be against that. I mean, it's almost impossible for us, unless we all agree on all of them, to take a vote on it. Would seem that it would be better that, and nobody wants to see 20 resolutions either, but there's gotta be a way to individualize each project so that the board, I mean, each one of these committees didn't vote on 7 of them at one time, did they?
Yeah, actually, especially the ones, all of the, like, everything except for the last 6 were in the budget that you guys approved for 2023. They were listed out individually on that, or on the ARPA budget page.
I just have a question, I'm not concerned, well, I guess I am, but, so if we can get 7 sets of bleachers for $40,000, how many seats is that?
I think it was,
I think it was 6,
I think it's like.
60-some seats per set.
65.
I think so, yeah. So how many seats do we have in the grandstand?
It's not.
I don't know if
If I'm not mistaken, it's 720.
I'm gonna say seven,
But
seven,
it's
eight
not
hundred.
for that.
I understand
Those
that,
bleachers
but
are not.
700?
Where are they for?
Between 700 and 800.
Just, and I'm just trying to weigh whether demolishing the grandstand and going all bleachers would be a better option. But,
We talked about that, and there is some other caveats to that. The grandstand, it was talk about building a shelter for like an emergency shelter in
okay,
case of a tornado or something during an event. About underneath them grandstands is about as good a shelter as you're gonna find if they're cleaned out and empty. And they're used just for storage now. So there's, you know, that'd be like abandoning a ready-made shelter. Not just for bleachers, but
okay.
for protection.
That's the kind of information that helps us make a more informed decision that's not contained in the resolution. And it does get difficult to vote on 20 items, if you only you wanna vote no on 2 and yes on 18.
Mr. Zell?
thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Willingham, to clarify, the bleachers that they purchased, and from my understanding, Gary, are these not portable ones to kind of replace the old portable ones there that are falling apart? The wooden ones that don't meet code anymore and that kind of stuff. They're not something, they're only, what are they, 6 rows? Five rows. Five rows. So they're not something that would replace the grandstand. It's a lot lower setup. It's set up so we can move them wherever we need them for different events on the fairground.
And they're much safer.
In baseball games.
Yeah.
They're ADA compliant, they've got the fencing around.
Andrea.
Lois?
I was gonna say, he explained it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
One more question.
Go ahead, sir.
There's a $20,000 share for a sheriff's department South Tower project. We're talking about borrowing $2 million to upgrade the whole radio system. Is that a duplicate here?
No,
That's moving it.
they're different.
It's moving it from the water tower in Sheldon to Enbridge, south of town. We're gonna get a lot more height down there. Enbridge is gonna pay all the costs on it, electricity, everything else. Of course, they don't pay Sheldon anything for it right now, but, no, it's just moving down there. It's a much better height. It's high. We looked at the other 2 towers. Enbridge is more than willing to let us put it on there. Maybe $1 a year.
Any other questions on this?
Did you still wanna amend, Tony?
No, I was draw.
Okay.
So what have we got?
So you need to vote on what the resolution? So we can do it.
Okay. Yeah, okay, we can vote on resolution right now. Passed by majority, 13 to 5. Okay, now we're down. Moving to 2023 general employee wage scale. Need a motion to second to approve.
Alright, so I was not here when the board voted to move forward with conducting a wage study, but I did find the RFP, and this is from August of 2021. The purpose of the RFP was to contract for a well-designed compensation program to give Rusk County better control over salary expenditures and help maintain a proper balance in the relationship between pay levels and the relative value of jobs within Rusk County and the labor market. The final deliverable shall be a new compensation plan for employees. So that is what the board voted to approve at the end of 2021. So we went through some changes in that time. Andy left, Jeremy left, and Jamie kind of took over in the interim, and then Ellie and I came on board. So, we've been discussing this in personnel for months. We initially came to the board in October, I believe, with a recommendation to implement the grid that Carlson Detman came back with and place each position on the grid at the step that gave at least a 2% increase. We got some feedback in public comment that the committee wasn't taking into account longevity. So we went back and had some good discussions, and working within our budget constraints, what we're proposing now is to implement the grid and place each position on the grid at the step that gives at least a 2% increase. And then an employee that has been here for 10 years or more at the end of 2023 will get an additional step.
Any questions?
Does anyone want me to go over how the steps are, how we pick which step? So you've got the grid, you've got the current rate of pay. Do you want me to go over how we're landing on a certain step? Or does everybody understand that, how the placement is gonna be?
It wouldn't hurt if you went over.
Okay. Oh, but I need all these steps.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Okay. Okay, so this is just, an example. These are not wages or positions that we have here. So you take the current rate of pay, you multiply that by 1.02, that's the 2% increase. This is the number that we use to choose the step placement. So for instance, position 1 currently at 2304, a 2% increase would put them at 2350. Using the grid that Carlson Detman gave us, you have to look where that would land on the grid, and you can see it would land between step 5 and step 6. So we wouldn't go down because that wouldn't be at least a 2% increase. So that position would be placed at step 6, which is 2356. So that person will actually be getting just a little bit higher than a 2% increase, because we're not gonna place them at a 5.5. They're gonna be at a step 6, okay? So then position 2, 2801, 2% increase is 2857. And as you can see, that puts them off the grid. So they're still gonna get their 2% increase. Everyone will get at least that, but this position will be red circled according to county policy, and I'll pull that up in a second. That means basically that we would hold that position at that wage until the grid catches up to what they would be paid. So then position 3 is at $16 an hour currently, a 2% increase would be $16.32. You can see they're well below the grid, so they would go to a step 1, which would be more than a 2% increase. So, does that make sense? How we're deciding on steps? Okay, then I'll quick just pull up the red circle policy. And this is from our handbook.
Mr. Raven, you got a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we talked about an appeal process before on this wage scale. I was wondering if the employees in the courthouse, or any of our employees, went to their department head, and the department head came to the personnel committee. Was that addressed, was that issue of concern taken into consideration in the wage scale? You know what I mean? Remember we
We're
talked about
still
the-
in the middle of an appeals process.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. Before we didn't have an appeal process, when we set this wage scale out, that's why we kind of tabled it before. I just wondered if we go through with the wage scale, if the people aren't happy in certain levels, and they go to the department head, is there a way that they can come to the personnel committee to upgrade the level that they're at?
So we gave them the opportunity to do that at the end of the year. We received 11 appeals, 4 of which were forwarded to Carlson Detman. They had criteria of what is appealable and what they would consider changing the grade on. We met with 3 of the 4 department heads. 1 department head couldn't make it because of a busy schedule. So that's why the appeals process is in limbo right now, because we had to reschedule with her for mid-February.
But the employees were informed about the decision.
The department heads were informed, and it was up to them how they wanted to handle the appeals
Okay,
process.
I just wanna make sure that, you know, everyone has their day in court, so, you know, if this passes, you know, I don't want a barrage of people jumping up and down in each office here saying, hey, I didn't have an opportunity to voice my opinion before it came to the board. That's why we tabled it before.
Mr. Willingham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions. One, I see nothing in the resolution that talks about redlining anyone, red circling, or whatever that you refer to. So if
Does that need to be in the resolution, or is
That's,
the handbook?
that's already, that's currently in your employee handbook.
okay, that's where that came from.
Correct, yeah, that's not a change, that's in your current, in your current handbook.
Okay, the other issue that is of concern to me, and I think might be of concern to our employees as well, is 2 things. One, we're dealing with this in January, and I don't know when it's taking effect, but employees have waited for us to do this. So unless we make these increases retroactive to January 1st, they won't get a 2% increase. They will get something less than the 2% increase based on the delay. In the past, in most instances, when the board approved wage increases for employees for the year and they didn't do it prior to January 1st, the wages were paid retroactively back to January 1st. And so I think that that has created a bit of kerfuffle with our employees. They won't be getting a 2% increase. They will be getting something less than 2% increase because of the delay. To move things along, since it's getting towards old guys' bedtime, I would like to make an amendment to the resolution making the increases retroactive to January 1st.
Yeah, I mean, this was made very clear to the personnel committee when we, didn't implement on January 1st, that it's really not feasible to implement this and retroactively backdate these wages. We do not have the man hours to do it. And this isn't a simple, 2% across the board. Each position is gonna fall differently on the schedule, and
We've
we
always
don't,
done it in the past, right?
this is,
We've
this
always
is the
done
first wage
retroactive
study
in
that
the
we've
past.
implemented. This is
What?
not, this is the first wage study that we've implemented. So, we haven't done it in the past.
We've done retroactive wage increases dozens of times.
rules is either we have to get a second on Mr. Willingham's motion or it's going to die for lack of a second.
March 1st.
You need a second, you need a second on the amendment.
Right, and so that unless somebody disagrees, there's no second, so then.
The motion dies.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Snyder, now you can talk.
Once again, where are EMTs on this wage study? We've been ignored, well, not anymore, but they've been ignored for years, shoved on the wayside and fit in backwards. Why aren't they in this study? I've asked this question months ago. They're full-time, well, some of them are full-time employees, benefits and everything else, just like the majority of people in that wage study.
With our discussions with Carlson Gutman, because there are the part-time and then the full-time people still take those part-time hours outside of their normal schedule, they don't fit into this wage study.
Also, the full-time ones
And
do.
we did a separate resolution to, increase the EMT's wages. in 2023. And then go in that resolution going forward, if there's an across-the-board wage increase, they would follow that.
What about the longevity?
There's
I did this for 40 years, so I was getting the same thing as somebody who started it last week. That's been a complaint for a long time, without a whole lot of increases over the years, so. If you're an employee, you're an employee, you know.
that they were covered by that separate resolution, and so there's nothing for longevity built into that.
Well, that's ridiculous. Sorry, but it is. I mean, I'm not one of those. Doesn't affect me. But for those who are full-time county employees, like every other person in this courthouse, to say, sorry, you can't get longevity pay is insane.
I don't believe that any of the full-time EMTs would qualify for the longevity pay anyway. We haven't had full-time EMTs long enough to meet that 10-year criteria.
So anyhow, all the years you put past doesn't count.
None of the, we've only had full-time EMTs since 2019.
But I mean, some of them got as many hours as a full-time employee for 10 years or more.
Yeah, I mean, their pay structure is different as well. It doesn't, with the on-call pay and the minimum, two hours of pay for, going from one call to another. It doesn't fit into the schedule, and that was
Well, then that's
discussions we
the
had had
schedule.
Okay,
I mean, I don't see anybody in this room volunteering to go out in the middle of the night and pick up bits and pieces and to say, well, that doesn't really count. It's ridiculous.
I'm not saying that it doesn't count, it just doesn't fit into.
You're saying it doesn't count or it will? I'm done. I'll try again another time.
moving on, we need a vote on this then. If you're in favor of the wage scale, vote no.
Yeah, wrong resolution is on the screen.
Yep, I'm trying.
You can vote now. That's my majority vote, 4 to 4. Now we have 15, permission to teleconference into county board meeting room, meetings for both county board meetings and members of the public. Need a motion and a second to approve? We have a motion and a second. Mr. Undershoots will present.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's been a lot of public support for teleconferencing into, board meetings. And for transparency reasons, I think it's a really good idea. There's no real reason that we should attempt to or hold the public up. The technology's there, and it's easier to use than you think. And I know Bugs can attest to it's pretty easy to set up. And at my age, I know that I'm one of the younger ones on the board, but people really utilize this technology to conference into things and see what's going on. And for people that work, I think it's really good to allow that access into the meetings, and not just for county board members, but the resolution states for the public as well. I think I put in the language of the policy itself that the expectation would be for a board member to attend in person, but we can understand there's circumstances where that might not be feasible. I think I could have done a little better job of the language of the committee and versus the county board. I think the intent would be on passage of this resolution, we should allow teleconference into as many meetings as we can. Understandably, if somebody's on a field trip somewhere and there's not Wi-Fi, that, we won't necessarily need teleconferencing into that, but I think it's really important for transparency, to allow people access to meetings if they can't come here and attend every single meeting in person.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose an amendment along the lines of what Mr. Undershoots has provided, and I think he did a really good job for the most part. Talked to him before the meeting, and under procedure 3D, it sort of provides a kind of a loophole at the end, which says, at the discretion of the committee board chair or majority vote of the committee to, in essence, not have public access. I don't think that was the intention. I think it was to allow for the possibility that, as he said, the zoning committee goes to site visits when we're looking at making approvals. The forestry committee travels around the county sometimes. So does the highway committee, and they might not be able to have virtual access for the public, but for the most part. So I would move to amend procedure 3D to strike everything after the word access in the third line. So it would say for both public access and county board member access, period. And everything after that line under D would be deleted.
Second to that. Any more discussion? Mr. Pluto?
This is premature, I guess, because I wanted to talk about a different bullet on this.
Pardon?
I wanted to talk about a different bullet, so
Okay.
I'll wait.
I've had a lot of people talk to me in the public, and almost everyone I've talked, I think almost actually everyone I've talked to has been for this. It's something that, maybe takeaway wasn't the worst thing for a short term, but, I think it helped people realize how valuable a tool it is. Often you don't see the impact it has because they're anonymous on online, which sometimes can be a bad thing, but we don't realize that the value it does provide to the public. And I think we've heard from a lot of people over the past few months that it does provide a value and a service to the public.
So before we get back into the main resolution, unless it's specifically on this amendment, we have a motion to amend that revises the policy to remove the highlighted portion. Correct?
Yeah.
So, on the amendment, unless somebody has a comment or concern, just the amendment, then we'll go back to the resolution as amended.
Six no. Passed by majority vote.
So now you're back to
Now we gotta vote on,
No, I think somebody had wanted to make another amendment maybe.
Mr. Kudo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under number 3, E. This is the meeting chairperson and the county clerk shall ensure that the equipment necessary to conduct such meeting is in place prior to commencement. Why would this, I guess I'm just curious as to why this should fall on the committee chairperson or the county clerk, because wouldn't this equipment actually be more of an IT function? And I believe that IT should be here to make sure. So my recommendation basically would be to change the wording there to saying that an IT person will ensure that the equipment necessary to conduct such meeting is in place.
Is there a second to that? Huh?
future amendment.
Oh.
Oh, Mr. Whitman had it. Okay, we heard, Mr. Snyder.
We do have some department heads that are very capable of doing this. This Phil is not, that Phil probably is to run this stuff. I'm wondering if we can put, IT or department head or their designee. Because if the department head can do it, there's no reason to pull IT down here. Nick, for one, has ran it rather positively, you know, and a few others I think probably could, but
I guess basically, I mean, what I was getting at was actually, I mean, more or less that if the county clerk is here for a meeting, and then like Jill would be in another meeting, who's gonna be in the clerk's office?
well, I agree, yeah. I agree both those positions gotta be altered.
So, I mean, I agree with you, I mean, yeah, maybe we could broaden that out slightly, like you said. It wouldn't necessarily have to be an IT person, but I wouldn't wanna narrow it down to the county clerk or the chairperson. So what, do you wanna say what your amendment is?
I said, IT or the department chair or his designee, because he might have somebody on it, or he or she might have somebody on their staff who could do it. And we aren't gonna tie IT up all the time if we don't need to. Department head or their designee along with IT.
I would agree with that.
Okay, so hold on, let's get this amendment straight. The ID department and the department or.
And or.
And or, yeah. Department. Or designee.
Right?
These are her.
Tom? What?
These are her. Thank you.
There.
And so this was, Mr. Kudo's, amendment, seconded by Mr. Willingham, correct?
Yes. with those
Yep.
enhancements.
So any other discussions on this, second amendment?
Mr. Wedwick, you would.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I guess I had the same concerns about the meeting chairman and running and having someone. I mean, I'm in favor of full transparency and especially for the county board meeting. But for every committee meeting, you're going to have somebody who's going to have to be able to run just the IT portion, if you will. And if you're pulling other people away from their duties to do this, either that or you're going to have to train every committee chairman in how to run that. And, you know, some of the rooms that we've met in and everything do not have video at this point. So is it just gonna be audio? We can't expect the county clerk and assistant to be that because we have meetings going on simultaneously and they can't be split among all of that at the same time. So I guess my question is, who's actually going to be doing this? And if I know you've got amendment in here, but the meeting chairperson, they're gonna have to be trained in that too. And then, you know, to monitor, and are you allowing the public to make comments during the meeting, or are they just gonna be able to watch it?
That's under G.
Yeah, that part's addressed, it says no public comment. So,
Unless
so they
previously-
can't make comments on the teleconferencing, thing, that way we don't run into any issues.
But I thought that G, no public comment, was in the beginning of your meeting, are there any public comments? I thought that referred to that,
Well,
not
wouldn't the
during
type comment be a
during the
public-
meeting.
Wouldn't the type comment be a public comment too?
A what?
If somebody typed a comment, that would be a public comment as well, right?
Yeah, or spoken.
So, I mean, it just says no public comment is allowed for teleconferencing.
So most of this electronic meeting policy only refers to county board members. There's only one or two instances in there that refer to the public.
I mean, if we wanna put it in every line, we could.
No, but I'm just saying that, and again, I'm in full, that's for at least the county board, but I'm thinking, you've gotta think about how are you going to do that for every committee meeting? I have no objection to that, but you've got staff
I
problems.
believe we have Wi-Fi in the whole courthouse here. Bugs would agree. We have Wi-Fi in the whole courthouse here.
But somebody's going to have to run that.
Right. So, we're suggesting now IT person or department head or chair. I mean, that way we broaden it a little bit.
So then it's gonna have to be trained.
Are you talking committee meetings or what?
Committee meetings.
Committee meetings.
I can't, okay.
I mean, I'm not a chairperson, but if they need volunteers out any of the meetings I'm in, I will run it if somebody shows me how. Sounds like it's not overly complicated or the bugs, so, I mean, I think we can make this work.
It's been working,
Yeah.
We haven't been doing committee meetings.
well, since October, but before that, we had virtual access to all of our meetings, all our committee meetings.
So, just to interrupt or interject here, Jim and Tony, you're up. Is yours on the amendment or on the resolution itself?
I can wait till the resolution itself.
Okay, is yours on this amendment or on the resolution itself?
It's got a resolution.
Okay, so, do you have any comments on the proposed second amendment here, deleting? Which, did it delete? Chairperson or the chairperson and the county clerk, and replacing it with the IT department and or the department head or his or her designee. Any questions on that second amendment to the resolution? Sheriff, go ahead.
Yep, you can vote on it now. Yep. That's my majority vote. 14. Now we're to the original resolution. Mr. Fudo, you want to speak on that one?
I have one more question, and I'm not sure if it applies to this resolution or not. or if there needs to be a separate policy developed in regards to this, but, and don't get me wrong, I am 100% for transparency. I think this is great. I think we need to do this. But my question is, what about, I mean, if we make this available, I mean, we need to have something in place that says people that are at work receiving, county pay, are not taking advantage of, taking away from their work time to listen to meetings.
That should be, was addressed in the personnel handbook, correct?
And what was the result of that?
There's a policy on that.
There is a policy
Yes.
already.
Has that gone through the county board? No, okay, so that's in the works, so that's coming.
Okay, all right. That's all.
Mr. Meyer,
In following up with what Tom said, but I do not believe at this time, if an employee is on, we don't have a way to monitor if an employee, if someone from this courthouse is on during work time. So even if it's in the handbook, my understanding is we don't have a way to monitor and track these computers as to where it's coming from within the courthouse. The other thing is anybody we discussed this at personnel, and I'm for the virtual meetings, loved them when we had them before. Now that I've been in personnel a little bit, I also feel it's my duty to sit on this board and look at things from another angle, not just what I want, but what's best for the county overall, not just a few individuals. Where's the liability for the county by adopting something like this? Because I sat here 2 years ago and listened to Andy Phillips say the last thing we wanted to do was go down this road. Now all of a sudden we're revisiting it. We got a resolution here tonight that's gonna be a hacked up mess by the time we're done with it, just so that we can get it through. Is that really the proper service to the county? I get it, we want virtual meetings, fine, but let's do it right. Has anybody consulted with legal, Von Briesen, anybody about doing this? You did?
I did.
Because I had some information that said, if you go down this road and you do an electronic meeting and something happens and the internet stops or anything, you have to suspend your meeting until you get it back up and going. Now, I'm not saying you're not right by putting
that's
these
in the
little
policy
caveats in here.
That's in the
Let
policy.
me finish.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're not right by putting these little caveats in here, and maybe you're 110% right. But I think the questions need to be asked, because you're asking department heads now. Clerk, that's fine. Coordinator, that's fine. But now you're asking department heads and committee chairs to take responsibility. What if they screw up and don't close in a closed session and come out and close out of that, the virtual? Who's gonna take the responsibility for that? I'm not taking it, I'm a chair. Where's it gonna stop if somebody decides to lawyer up and sue the county? I mean, that's gonna be a big one.
I mean,
There needs to be other things put in place here to protect us before we just adopt a resolution so we can say we have one.
the safe route would be not to do anything at any time, but at some point, there's the right and wrong factor. At some point, something needs to be done. And, I mean, I would love for personnel to modify this resolution. Maybe next month, come back with some modifications and we can pass the modifications. That is perfectly fine with me,
Great,
if
then
there's-
let's send it back to personnel.
don't think that's the right decision.
Personnel looked at it once.
And
It got voted down, did it not? For the reasons that
They
I
chose
just
not
kinda
to take
stated.
action, but I don't see any new actions coming out of this right now.
I think personnel committee's been pretty busy with the things that have been coming out of it, but I'm sorry,
Right,
I'll
so
have
it's
to talk to the chair for not putting this on the top of the list.
So I was just trying to help personnel out with their.
Just to get into quorum here, direct your comments at the chair, I know it's good
I didn't
conversation.
start this tit for tat.
No, understood.
Mr.
But-
Patel,
I'm done.
the question I have, I guess, is actually gonna be addressed to the clerk. If this is all implemented, what extra burden, what extra help is needed by this clerk's office to handle this?
Well, they changed that to not, I'm not that person. So they made an amendment to change that, correct? Is that the way I see it?
Just have it to the top again.
So,
We did it for 2 years. What's gonna be different? We're gonna just
Ma'am?
start doing it again.
Please stop. I won't tell you again. Thank you.
so it doesn't put any more burden on me because it got switched to how it was.
Mr. Hauser?
I can see two problems here. One of them, maybe it's not a problem, but I have a question if it's, number one, is it gonna be ADA compliant? You have somebody that, supposedly wants to be on virtual because of handicap, and what if they're, they have to have sign language? Who's gonna do the sign? On virtual. It's a legitimate thing. They have a right to see it in sign language. Who's gonna do it? How are you gonna handle it? And the other thing I see is you're gonna involve every committee meeting, you're gonna start having a logistics problem. Because you might have more than one meeting at a time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as, somebody with disabilities, I did talk to Bugs and he said that putting closed captioning on, the teleconferencing wasn't that hard of a thing to do. So I mean, if that's something we think we should put on there, I'm all in favor of that.
Any other comments?
Hold on, I'm trying to push my button here.
Can you amend again? Can you amend again?
We can amend this all the time.
Okay, so John is requesting to amend.
It's not letting me though.
It
Can I
will.
just verbally amend?
Currently right
Alright,
now.
so, back to 3D, so we struck out part of 3D. So it's required, and I'm all for it, I'm for that. It's requiring virtual access for all meetings, and I guess Rich maybe can help me word this. But sometimes you have like interview committee where you immediately go into closed session, so could we make an exception for closed session meetings, like we're the only item on the agenda is a closed session, cause otherwise you have to log in virtually for literally a minute and then log out. Does that make any sense? So I'm not quite sure how to word that.
Ad hoc, interview?
Well, I'd rather have it be an exception for if the meeting only has a closed session on the agenda, that meeting would not be virtual, because there would be really no point to maybe making it virtual.
Gary, I need to deal with your, I can do it.
Close out of it.
Where have we got?
So 3D is where I think we changed it. Yep.
Mr. Willingham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer your question, Mr. Undershoots, the agenda for such a meeting would be very clear that the only business that's going to be conducted is a motion to go into closed session and a motion to come out of closed session. And then if that committee is going to take action on business that was conducted in the closed session, then clearly it has to be an open session. So,
And therein lies the practical problem, is that if you go into closed session, the best practice would be to pick a specific time that you're gonna go back into open session. The problem is, you don't know if you go in and you think it's going to be a half an hour, and then that's being 2 hours.
but that wouldn't be any different. It seems to me that the virtual access process should as closely mirror the open meetings process as possible. So if a person from the public can be here in the room during the open portions of the meeting and leave during the closed portions of the meeting, we don't tell them what time to come back. We just, if they wanna be here for the rest of the open session, they stand out in the hall or, whatever. So it's, you know, to me, the public is asking for virtual access. They're going to have to handle the inconvenience of closed sessions. That's just a part of the process. They would handle it if they were here in the room, and handle it if they're at home on the phone or on the.
I'm not so much worried about that, is that then you have to set up a meeting where literally there's really no benefit to the public, and then somebody has to go through all the effort or the motion.
But you really don't know until you go through the closed session
Yeah.
that there's nothing that's gonna come out of that.
Yeah.
So, on generally every closed session, you are going to have,
I believe you're required to have a possible motion on the business of the closed session on the agenda.
correct, and in any event, you're going to have, arguably a motion to adjourn.
I'll withdraw my motion.
You ready to vote?
No. Have to edit this.
Yeah, I'm gonna use that as
Make motion to table.
Hold on, we gotta get the floor first, but let me tell you.
I'm ready.
What is the motion?
No, there's no amendments on the table, it's just the.
Main motion.
Right, made motion as amended twice. So,
Vote on it now.
Hang on, John.
Can I make a motion to table this for next month?
Huh?
We make a motion to table this for next month, so the rest of us can kinda think this over, chew it through.
So, and it should be postponed to February 23rd at the 9 AM meeting,
Right.
if that's your motion.
Yep, that's my motion.
That's your motion?
I'll second.
So was that another?
Yep.
So
John
hit your amendment button.
I need an amendment to it.
That's how she's doing it, but it's not.
Well, I don't have any other way to do it.
Understood.
so-
Okay, new technology don't work.
I'm sorry.
Tony Hauser seconded it. Postpone it till February,
February 23rd, yeah.
February 23rd. Any more discussion?
What's the motion?
It's a motion to postpone to the, February 23rd, 2023 meeting.
We gotta get Rich a minute.
No, nobody else made it, go ahead.
Okay. Ready to vote? So can we vote on it then?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, you can vote then. Motion is to postpone it till February 23rd day meeting. Passed by majority vote, 11 yes, 7 no. I guess now we are going into closed session.